Welcome to the Gruber Morning Show. This is our EV portion. I'm Pete Gruber.
I'm Mark Schaffner. Good morning and welcome everybody.
So the thumbnail behind us is a article that we're going to talk about here shortly regarding a proposed federal tax charge for road use for EVs.
You know, the federal's not the first one we've talked about like this either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, they're all curious about it because there is a legitimate reason for doing so because, ICE vehicles are diminishing and declining.
Yeah.
And roads typically, a portion of their upkeep is paid for by gasoline tax.
Sure is.
So we'll capture that in a moment. In the meantime, I wanted to throw up a picture for you here. And this is a posting on Facebook just recently of the Aptera production facility. And then there's an article about three different three-wheeler car manufacturers that they expressed some really strong opinions about. One of them was Aptera, Arcimoto, and Solo, Electromechanica Solo. So staying with Aptera for a moment, the thing that amazed me most about this was, if you take a look at the facility, compared to Lucid, for example, acres and acres of production facility in two different countries. This is very tiny. They talk about the three lifts. Well, if you're going into car production, how will three lifts allow you to scale?
It won't.
Oh, right. That's a good. Yeah, it's a good comeback. So the article continues here. And by the way, before we get too deep into this, the article is not very favorable on any of these companies, but all of us in the alternative energy space badly want to see these kinds of companies survive, flourish, and prosper.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
You know, Aptera is one of the most interesting ones in that the solar vehicle is very reminiscent of the technology that was a fantasy in the last century with the Jetsons, for example. Mm-hmm. And this Aptera design very much looks like that they captured it from the Jetsons cartoons. So the article continues, Aptera epitomizes the chronic failure endemic to three-wheeled EV startups, promising a lightweight, aerodynamic, solar-powered three-wheeler that captivates EV enthusiasts and media alike. Aptera quickly racked up tens of thousands of reservation deposits. Now, here's something else I was amazed at. They've been doing this for 20 years, and they have collected $200 million in that time period and burned through most of it at this point.
Wow, that's just amazing.
Without ever having delivered a single vehicle to any of the reservation customers yet. Now, you've seen them at trade shows. You know, I think at SEMA there was one, and they're definitely intriguing and they're attention getters. Mm-hmm. But as some of the people pointed out in their comments, we'd certainly love to see some customers getting some of these at this point.
Yeah, you would think at this point for $200 million, they could get one car done.
Yeah, yeah. The article continues, according to the SEC filing in 2024, Aptera had just $13.6 million remaining in cash and had hemorrhaged $95 million in losses over the previous 2 years. To date, their primary deliverable remains glossy renderings rather than actual automobiles. With the automotive equivalent of no money, no confirmed and firm vendors, and ongoing changes to vehicle architecture, Aptera's last statement on the subject was that they needed only $60 million to enter production. Of course, it begs the question, Mark, where is this coming from?
And $60 million is not a lot of money for the automotive industry.
Mm-hmm. So, Aptera's repeated financial shortfalls, they say, are symptomatic of deeper flaws, and notably the vast underestimation of capital required to move from prototype to production vehicles in the automotive world. Of course, the concept, solar charging for highway-capable electric vehicles, has everyone intrigued. But the article is none too kind on that either. It says, this remains an impractical gimmick rather than a realistic contribution to vehicle range or convenience, given minimal surface areas, orientation constraints, and inevitable shading issues during everyday driving.
Yeah, I mean, it's making a lot of good points there. Again, at the same time, Aptera has been out for so long.
Hmm.
It really,
During the formative years of Tesla, if you think about it, 2005.
yeah, if Aptera has been more than 2 decades, then Aptera was making its car about the same time Tesla was designing the Roadster.
Yeah. One of the comments on Facebook from one of the readers was, it would be cool to see 10 or more vehicles touring the United States and hitting up multiple cities at the same time. It would gain some visibility and popularity.
I think it would. Jiminy Stack has joined us as well on Instagram and says, I have one on order. The first time they got bought out, and that failed. They then had to restart. Okay, that helps explain some of it.
Okay.
Said they have a few prototypes now.
Okay, but nothing in the hands of owners yet. Jiminy, I'm proud of you. You're one of the true early adopters. Jiminy is here in Arizona, by the way. He is a strong proponent of all things alternative energy and EV, and one of the godfathers here locally.
Yeah.
So one of the things that Solo is doing currently, Electromechanica Solo, we have a couple of vehicles here at our service center, Gruber Motor Company.
Mm-hmm.
And the CEO of Solo is actually hiring a couple of people to drive around and promote the car. And it will be Starbucks locations, Old Town Scottsdale, a lot of foot traffic.
Yeah.
And the primary reason is, every time I take the car out to drive it, I think Roadsters get a lot of attention. You know, the Tesla Roadster Sport car that people say, how can that be a Tesla? Because everything we see is four-door grocery getters.
Right.
This Solo actually gets even more attention than the Tesla Roadster. People love the car. It's not uncommon to look in the side view mirror, and there is no rear view mirror, by the way, because it's just you in the cabin.
Right.
You have two side view mirrors. And you see people with their cell phones taking pictures of the back of the car or pulling up alongside asking questions. So I think that's a sound strategy. Let's get the cars out there. Let's get them. Let's get people used to them, kind of like they do with Waymo, and then see if this whole concept begins to take off.
I had a great conversation with one of our drivers, and Lisa said it was amazing the amount of attention she got.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
She was blown away by it and loves driving it. She says the car is just a real kick to drive.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's of course every once in a while you get this stark realization this is not your regular sedan, because when you have a friend, for example, and or one of your nephews or nieces or grandchildren, you say, let's go to the store, you want to come with me?
Yeah.
They can't. It's a single seater. Yeah. So, all right, a few more comments here. Instagram, it's Jiminy again. He said they have planned a few for trips over the U.S. Yes, and someone on this Facebook site did say that there are tours planned for all over the country later this summer. Watch for the announcements, they say. And then he also mentions that they drove one from Flagstaff to California 2 months ago. I think the more these are out on the road, the more interest this will, of course, generate.
I really hope that Aptera can figure out a way to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that's one of the more exciting cars out there, and the technology advances. At some point, they need to just stop and get the car out so they can start billing money. It sounds like the company is run by engineers rather than salespeople, personally.
Yeah, that's what it's beginning to sound like as well. 20 years of effort and not a product to show yet.
Yeah.
And continuing design changes. Yeah, it sounds like engineers, doesn't it?
It sure does. It sure does. Yet the technology is so exciting that's coming out.
It is. So we've got another chart here I wanted to throw up for you. And this one was created by an owner who felt that there were no other charts that would show all of the Tesla vehicles and their range. So he put it together, and there you have it. This is the expected range chart for Teslas. And he says this is real life range, not what they tell you at the showroom. So if you have one, please confirm that this is what you're getting, and we'll be able to see how accurate this chart is.
You know, the car I drive is a 100D, and 319.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's right about where it was at when I first got it, because it was still fairly low mileage as a car goes, and I've had it for a few years now, so now it's more like 309. Sometimes, depending on how I charge it, it'll bump up to about 313.
So who are the clear winners in terms of range in this? It looks like Model 3, perhaps?
I'm thinking either Model 3 long range, or that the Plaid Model S has really impressive range as well as the dual motor performance.
I'm seeing on the Plaid you're looking at. Okay, I'm looking at the Model X. Where's the Model S? There you go.
Yeah, down on the lower
348.
left at
Yeah.
348. That's just about as high as we're going to get.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Well, thank you, whoever you were on Facebook, for posting that. That was a chart that we had not seen before. This one made the headlines this last week, and it turns out that the Hyundai Ioniq 6 gets stylish new looks and a NACS port and an impressive range of 353 miles compared to that chart we just saw. That's way up there, isn't it?
Yeah, it's right near the top.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's been about 3 years that Hyundai has had the Ioniq 6 out. At first, it seemed like the Ioniq 6 was going to take the auto industry by storm. It seemed like they were everywhere all of a sudden. The sales were great, and Hyundai and Kia are sister companies. So the Kia EV4 is like the Ioniq 6. But then everything just kind of fell off for Hyundai. I just think people were turned off by everything being so square and boxy. Maybe I don't know. That was the thing that stood out for the Ioniq series.
Right. They talk about this Ioniq 6 having an 84 kWh pack, which compared to some of these other packs we saw on that chart is actually smaller but gets some impressive range.
Yeah, that's impressive range. Electrek on this article said, though, that Ioniq only sold 12,264 units last year.
Really?
As compared to about 190,000 Model 3s from Tesla.
Amazing numbers, yes.
So, but I think the NACS port is definitely going to help.
So here's an interesting new article that came up just within the last week. And it turns out that the federal government is imposing a $250 annual registration fee for electric vehicles, arguing that they use roads and should contribute to the maintenance just like ICE cars. Now, it's interesting. We're going to examine these numbers and see how legitimate this is, but I wanted to read you a story. Kind of this is an AI analogy where I asked AI to give us a humorous take on this, and here's how it reported. It said, all right, 2 cars pull up at a toll station. One's a belching, rumbling gas guzzler that smells like it just ran over a refinery. The other's a sleek, silent EV that looks like it was designed by aliens who care about air quality. The toll guy leans out of his booth and points to the gas guzzler, and he said, "You're good. You already paid at the pump." Then he turns to the EV, and he says, "That'll be $100. The EV driver blinks and says, "Wait, I'm the clean one. I'm not wrecking the air. I'm not leaking oil everywhere, and you're charging me more?" The toll guy grins and says, "Exactly. You're not buying gas, so you're not paying gas taxes. Got to make up for it somehow, right?" The EV driver says, "But he's literally poisoning the planet." Toll driver says, "Yeah, and we reward that with tax breaks, subsidies, and cheaper tolls. Welcome to the system."
I think that's a fun analogy. And I especially like a car designed by aliens.
Mm-hmm. Right. So let's look at the math here. Let's see what they're coming up with. Well, gas-powered cars fund roads via the federal gas tax, which is set at 18.4 cents per gallon. The average U.S. driver covers about 13,500 miles annually, and a typical gas car gets roughly 25 miles per gallon. So after a little number crunching, this means that the average driver pays $99.36 in federal gas tax per year. Now compare that to the proposed $250 EV fee, that means that EV owners now are going to be paying 2.5 times more than the gas car owners for the same road use. And let me show you a little chart that they created that confirms that. There we go. So the question becomes, what's a fair share? Well, since EVs use roads similarly to gas cars, their contribution should align. The $99 gas tax benchmark shows the $250 fee is excessive. And a fair EV should be about $100 charge, just like the ICE cars, without penalizing EV drivers now. Now, there's another compelling argument that's made here. If either vehicle type should pay more, gas cars should be the ones that pay the additional fees because of all the externalities they hoist onto society. And what they talk about here is EVs deliver community benefits that gas cars can't match. EVs produce zero tailpipe emissions, reducing air pollution and health costs tied to smog and respiratory issues. Studies estimate that gas vehicle-related pollution costs the U.S. billions annually in healthcare and environmental damage. Well, EVs curb this. Additionally, funds that are spent on EV fuel, electricity, stay local, bolstering utility companies and renewable energy investments. In economies, for all of these reasons and more, EVs deserve fair treatment, not a steep fee. So there was a portion here that talked about let's see here. So yeah, canceling the federal gas tax and make everyone pay the same amount to use the same roads would be the fair way to do this. But you know, this final statement that they make here, that gas money often flows to oil companies in foreign markets, which siphons from the local economies. The question becomes, do we really want to fund OPEC a bit more?
That's a fair question.
And it's exactly what would happen if this tax was allowed to remain the way that it is.
You know, did you know the gas tax has been in place at 18.4 cents per gallon for 31 years?
No, I did not know that.
It started in 1993, or was adjusted most recently in 1993. If you simply accounted for the rate of inflation and adjusted the gas tax to what it would be in 1993 dollars, it would be 41 cents a gallon today.
Interesting. So they haven't adjusted. They haven't kept up.
Yeah, they haven't kept up. And if you look at 18.4 cents up to 41 cents, you would be at about $250 per year for a gas car. I'm not necessarily opposed to the gas tax. It makes sense to have money to fund our roads. What I don't like is the unfairness of it.
Right, right. And if they did raise the gas tax for the ICE vehicles, then it could potentially even it out and create a lower cost for both.
Yeah, and you know, that's the piece that I still think is being underreported in the press. It's the politics of taxes. Politicians try their best to mask any tax raises that they put through, and this is basically just a tax raise, and yet it's couched in the political speak of, well, it's just for the tree huggers, and they don't think, and the masses are not thinking about how many of them are going to be affected within the next few years as the EV marketplace shifts, or as cars shift to become more EV. And that's why they're doing 250. I think they came up with it as a nice round number that would be an adjusted for inflation number if they brought the gas tax itself up to you know, from $1993 up to $25.
Sure. And of course, it's politically very unpopular to raise taxes.
Oh, of course.
Okay. Makes sense. TikTok, John 727 joins us. He says, do you guys think BYD's cheaper lineup is going to eat Tesla's market share in Europe?
Short answer, yes, I do.
And I think it's already happened.
I think it's already happened. I think it's continuing to happen. Ultimately, people are going to look for what they feel like is the best deal. That's my philosophy anyway. And the best deal, oftentimes price is a top 3 consideration in that best deal. Some people are going to say, no, I'm gonna take other factors like where the car is manufactured. Most people will not.
Yeah.
If a car gets good range, which I would say is 250 miles or more, it's got a good price, which means it's equivalent to a gas vehicle or less, then and it's easy, and EVs are easy to maintain. They have lower cost of ownership than ICE vehicles. That's where people are going to migrate to. And when you have EV versus EV, there's not a lot of difference besides price.
Yeah. Interesting concept. The you had something you were going to tell us about a battery that charges in 18 seconds?
Yeah, so think about this. What if, in the time it's taking me to ask you this question right now, your battery was charged from 0 to 100%?
Wow, that would put gas stations out of business, wouldn't it?
Oh
'Cause
my
it's
gosh.
faster. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you go, you plug in your car, you check you go in, you check and sit down and check to make sure that it's charging, and then as soon as you've checked to make sure that it's charging, you get up, and by the time you walk back, you're done.
So you know what comes to mind here? I have this visual. We all know what the charge cables look like, right? At the superchargers,
Yeah.
they're about the size of a garden hose.
Yes.
It seems to me that in order to do this kind of electron flow, you would have to have something the size of a fire engine hose, right?
It seems like
Yeah.
it. Yeah. Who's going to jack up the cable to plug into the
Right.
car?
So how does this work, Mark? Tell us about this.
Well, a British firm has received approval to mass produce an ultra-high power density electric vehicle battery that in lab tests has been able to fully charge in 18 seconds. The RML group was granted a conformity of production certification for its VAR eVolt battery back on June 2nd. This government approval by the British government signifies that the firm can mass produce these powerful batteries for EV manufacturers. Here's some of the basics of the battery. The battery can deliver either really high power in a short span, really good energy over a longer span, or it can be balanced between the two. It can supply, get this, 6 kilowatts of power per kilogram.
Break that down.
I'm glad you asked.
Okay.
How much does a 100 kilowatt battery pack in a Tesla Model S weigh, roughly?
1,200 pounds.
Okay, how about it weighing 50 pounds instead? Actually,
Yeah. I'm
I'm a little high. It would be 44 pounds.
Amazing.
100 kilowatts worth of power could be stored in a 44-pound battery pack. And so the battery has a C rating. The C rating is basically the ability for a battery to charge or discharge. It's 200. Now, by comparison, a typical EV battery has a C rating that it ranges anywhere from 2 to about 6. The Porsche Taycan battery has a C rating of somewhere between 4 and 5. So the VAR eVolt's modular design lets manufacturers tune it for different applications. So they can focus on range, like I was talking about. They can focus on power, or they can balance the two. And so where they're going first is because they've done small scale, they went into the Zinger 21C hybrid hypercar first, and they tuned it more toward power. They are also looking at the possibility of being able to convert these battery packs to put in older hypercars. Think of LaFerrari or McLaren P1. We've seen a LaFerrari battery. Think of a LaFerrari battery that could power that car for 300 miles.
Now you've converted into an EV instead of a hybrid.
Yes. Or a LaFerrari power battery that can put out enough power to put 3,000 horsepower into the electric motors. 1,000 horses per motor for 3 motors.
Again, ICE engine is toast at that point.
Your ICE
Forget
engine
that
is toast.
highly evolved 12-cylinder engine. It's no longer necessary.
Yeah, it's
We
no
just
longer
we just
necessary.
want the sound.
That's yeah, exactly. Maybe they keep the 12-cylinder engine just to rumble while they're driving
Yeah.
down the road. But yeah, they're talking about for those types of cars, they can make replacement packs that would fit in the cars and would significantly increase the range of the cars. Another potential application, put them in more of your grocery getter type car, and then you have just a really small pack that possibly sits in what we call now the frunk, or could sit underneath the car, but it'd only be about 50 pounds, significantly lightening the overall weight of the car and further increasing the range.
Sure. And from a performance standpoint, with that huge a gain in weight, you no longer need the horsepower to get the same type of performance specs.
Exactly.
You know?
Or think about what we've talked about with Cass. She's been talking about wanting a motorcycle that had really real range and real performance. This is the type of battery that you could stick into a motorcycle, and the next thing you know, you've got a motorcycle that has 500 miles of range and is faster than a Ducati.
Wow. What is the chemistry on this? Does it say?
It doesn't say what the chemistry was. I tried to look it up and actually didn't find it. And I was a little disappointed on that. But the whole idea of an 18-second charge, if that can be proven out and put into the marketplace, it's going to be highly disruptive to the EV marketplace.
For those of you interested in looking up more information on this was an MSN.com article, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So here's a fascinating thing that happened in New Jersey this last week. Tesla features used to flunk 16-year-old's driver's license test. Well, a license examiner in New Jersey confused one standard feature of Tesla's as a way a 16-year-old excelled through his driver test. He failed him because of it.
That just sounds so unfair.
Well, it does, yes. Lachlan Kiefer, who's a New Jersey resident, showed up for his driver's test with his dad and in their 2022 Tesla Model Y. However, they say the test did not go according to plan, especially according to the examiner who rode along for the test with Lachlan. They accused him of using parking and stopping assistance to go through the tests. Now, it turns out that the complaint was from the examiner he had the parking and stopping assistant on and never stepped on the brake to stop to let the vehicle stop itself. Well, guys, the EVs, once you learn to drive them with regen braking, you learn one-pedal driving.
Yeah.
And your brake is not used as often anymore because it will achieve the same goal as you pumping that brake.
I think of the Volvo that I own.
Mm-hmm.
There is no option to turn down the regenerative braking.
Right.
And it's more aggressive than any regenerative braking I've driven on a Tesla. It's truly one pedal. With the Model S, I can get down to about 5 to 10 miles an hour, but then I have to hit the brake to finally stop. Mm-hmm. Not the Volvo. You've let off the gas and it pretty aggressively brakes all the way down to zero.
So the dad says that they do not subscribe to Tesla's full self-driving suite, which includes things like auto park, navigate on autopilot, auto steer on city streets. These are a few of the things that have been used as reasoning to fail drivers in tests. So Lachlan was the victim of regenerative braking, which is standard on all vehicles. So the complaint, again, the examiner accused the son of that during the parallel parking portion, he executed that perfectly. And he accused him of using paid parking assistance and driving features. Now here's where it gets really even more interesting, and this sounds like a bureaucratic bungling here.
Yeah.
So the examiner failed the kid, asked dad if he could take, so then the dad asked if he could take the test again, if they disabled the regenerative braking for the exam. I'm not even sure how you do that on a Tesla. On a Model S, I think you can adjust it, but I'm not sure you can turn it off completely.
It doesn't turn off completely, but you can adjust it so that it's so light that it's almost invisible. You pretty much have to brake.
Or have the son go through the motions of pretending that he was braking, having his foot on the pedal, without applying it. But they said that the examiner said he'd have to wait 2 weeks to take the test again. So they got a supervisor involved, another bureaucrat, and but he backed the examiner, and he said that policy claimed that Kiefer or the son had violated a policy regarding the driving test. When they asked for some proof, they said, we can't find that anywhere. So it turns out they couldn't find it, they couldn't cite it, and when the dad showed them, what his car is doing, they refused to read it. So he's got another 2 weeks, and I'm sure this time they're either going to take an ICE car to take the test, or he's going to fake the pedal on the brake.
Well, something else they could do, I just thought of. Make sure they go to the supercharger that's close, get a supercharger close to there or charge it, and make sure that the battery's charged to 100%. Because your regenerative braking essentially turns off when your battery's right at 100% because it doesn't want to overcharge the battery.
So there you go. If Lachlan and his dad are watching our podcast, there's another solution for you. YouTube, R.C. Robinson-san is joining us. He says, DMV people hate Tesla. They see the disruption with the amount of registrations.
Oh, I'm sure they do.
Yeah.
Well, that's the other thing you have to think about is how long is DMV going to be relevant in this world?
Oh, I can't wait till they go away, actually. It's one of my favorite things, or used to be every year, is to go down there and wait in line for 45 minutes to an hour and a half.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
All right, another interesting article that we came across, and this one is Lucid is ramping up hiring with nearly 800 open positions currently. Of those current openings, about 80 are in manufacturing, 100 in service, 155 in the digital division, which could be anything from software engineering, infotainment, or driver assistance type software. In late March of this year, Lucid listed roughly 640 openings, which is about 100 fewer than it is now. But in August of last year, the company had 474 open roles. So it looks like there's some growth involved here.
Yeah.
Lucid employs a total of 6,800 full-time staff worldwide at the end of 2024, which is up from about 6,500 at the end of 2023, according to the latest SEC filing. Lucid has also had some layoffs. They reduced the workforce by 6%, around 400 jobs, in May of 2024. And then a larger round of layoffs was occurred in March of 2023 that cut roughly 18% of the staff to or about 1,300 positions. As of 2022, Lucid has 7,200 employees worldwide. So you can see the company's fairly large. They did hold a ribbon-cutting ceremony last week here in the in Phoenix area for this new, what they call the Innovation Hub. And it's a facility that was previously used by the EV startup Nikola. Lucid bought the assets for around $30 million, and it said that it planned to hire more than 300 former Nikola employees in roles spanning manufacturing, engineering, software, assembly, vehicle testing, and warehouse support at the Arizona site. So far, it turns out the CEO, Mark Winteroff, said that they have hired 250 of those former Nikola workers that have already joined Lucid. So it's kind of nice of them to pick up the employees.
Oh, yeah. The employees go from really a bad situation with Nikola. It wasn't the employee's fault in any way, to a better situation with Lucid.
Mm-hmm. All right, another article here, and this one has to do with Elon. The Elon Musk biographer, Walter Isaacson, who wrote the book just recently, last year, has received, they say, unprecedented access to Tesla's CEO, to Elon, and he expects that two companies are going to merge now, Tesla and xAI. He thinks that the move is quite likely, and he feels that this would better serve each company's mission. He did mention that while the book was being written, even while the book was in process, he said Elon said that he was starting, of course, xAI, and he was talking about how chatbots are fine, but what you really need is real-world AI. You need to be able to not only take all the texts and tweets that have ever been written, but all the videos from Teslas and all the Optimus robots seeing and hearing. And I mean, talk about feeding a large language model. All the cars out there, millions of them, collecting data, driving data, position data, restaurant data, where their owners are preferring to eat. And then, of course, the Optimus robots. All of that data is being fed into AI, into large language models.
Right. To me, it's a little bit reminiscent of Steve Jobs and Next Computer. A little bit. Steve Jobs was the chairman of the board and CEO of Apple, and he was fired. Mm-hmm. Apple was close to bankruptcy. They needed somebody who could bring process improvement into the company and not just be the visionary and not a detail person. And so Apple did their thing. Steve Jobs founded Next Computer. Mm-hmm. Got the valuation of the company up to close to $500 million within about 2 years. And Apple was floundering and was actually even closer to bankruptcy than they were under Steve Jobs. And they realized that the person that they needed, now that they had processes in place, was the person that they fired. So they bought out Steve, paid him $500 million, reinstalled him as CEO and chairman of the board, and the rest is history.
Right. Good point. Yes.
And this is, what a way for Elon to get his $56 billion payout. Mm-hmm. So found a company, build it up, sell it back to Tesla.
And of course, the article continues. It says the Tesla is still the top-selling vehicle in the space. Although sales numbers have dipped this year, but we continuously point out Tesla is so much more than a car company.
Yeah.
So with this type of a merger, that will make it even more compelling and valuable.
It makes a lot of sense to Tesla itself because it's done such an investment in AI. It would make a lot of sense to bring those two companies together.
Yeah. YouTube, Highlander has just joined us. He says, "Hi, RC," smiley face. I actually spoke to Highlander yesterday on the phone. We had a great conversation. He's going to be in Muskegon, Michigan at the Tesla event the end of this week.
Yeah, I was thinking it's about that time of year.
And he's going to be looking for Tesla Roadsters for us to see if there are any attending there. These days, very few of them actually go to these events.
Highlander also says, "I know a gentleman who is working on an empathetic AI model. I helped them in the middle of the night, and I thought, what's this about? And then, when I had to file an insurance claim, a female voice came, and I realized the voice was AI. Very sympathetic during my time of need, during my mother's loss, filing her insurance claim."
Fascinating. Yeah,
it is fascinating.
It's going to be quite a revelation once we get AI involved in some of the human sciences, such as counseling, for example.
Yeah.
Because emotions are definitely going to have to be part of that for it to be convincing.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that migrates into that space.
How will the irrationality of emotions play into something that ultimately is 100% logical and rational because it's machine?
Yeah. Will it be contrived? Will it be genuine? And if it is genuine, then, anyway, we're going to go down the AI rabbit hole.
Yeah, we will.
Which is tomorrow, by the way, at 10 o'clock. Join us. We have a lot of fun chasing down these philosophies and conceptual these concepts. Well, it looks like we're at the end of our podcast. Aaron, did you have anything compelling, or can it wait till next week?
It can wait till next week.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. 9:37 our time. Again, we want to thank everybody for joining us. We have a lot of fun doing these, and we always like it when you guys chime in. I'm Pete Gruber.
I'm Mark Schaffner. Have a wonderful week.